A tale of meditation, finding peace amid the everyday storm. On an early morning in the 15th century, Thomas à Kempis sat in the quiet of his monastery room, the faint glow of a candle flickering across the pages before him. He penned the words of the Imitation of Christ, particularly the section on the interior life, where he spoke of meditation. He believed that even in a world torn by chaos, be it war or plague, people could find peace if they paused, looked within, and connected with God. Over 500 years later, those words still echo, a beacon for souls adrift in the clamor of the 21st century. Picture Anna, a 28-year-old woman living in a bustling city. She works in advertising, where every day is a race against deadlines and expectations. She wakes up, her hand already reaching for her phone, eyes glued to the screen as she checks emails, texts, and scrolls through social media. Friends post about lavish vacations, colleagues boast of successful projects, and a quiet heaviness settles in her chest. "I'm falling behind," she mutters to herself. By evening, back in her small apartment, Anna collapses on the couch, exhausted, her mind still spinning with the question, what am I even living for? Then one day, Anna overhears a friend mention meditation, not some elaborate ritual, but simply taking a moment of stillness to talk to God or listen to oneself. She shrugs, thinking, sounds ridiculous. How could sitting still fix anything? But in a moment of desperation, she decides to give it a shot. The next morning, instead of diving into her phone, Anna sits by the window, closes her eyes, and takes a deep breath. She whispers, "I'm so tired. I don't know what to do anymore." At first, her thoughts are a jumble of to-do lists, but slowly, a strange calm creeps in. It's as if someone gently says, "You don't have to carry it all. Trust and take it one step at a time." From then on, Anna changes. Work remains hectic, but she's no longer swept away by the storm. She finds a pocket of peace in her daily grind, all thanks to those quiet moments of meditation. Contentment, when enough becomes enough. Thomas à Kempis doesn't use the word contentment outright, but its spirit saturates his writing. He suggests that when people meditate and center their lives on God, they learn to let go of fleeting desires, those things that stir restlessness, and discover true joy. It might sound lofty, but in today's world, it feels surprisingly close to home. Take David, a 40-year-old businessman. He has everything society deems successful, a thriving career, a happy family, and a comfortable home. Yet he always feels something's missing. Just one more big contract, and I'll be satisfied, he tells himself. The contract comes, money flows in, but the joy fades like a passing breeze. One afternoon, sitting alone in his office, David stares out the window and wonders, why do I still feel empty? A friend suggests he try meditating and praying. David scoffs but agrees, figuring he has nothing to lose. He starts spending 10 minutes a day in silence, eyes closed, reflecting on his life. The first time, he's irritated, his mind won't stop racing with work concerns. But over time, in that stillness, David realizes he's overlooked the things that matter most, his son's laughter, his wife's gentle touch, or a quiet evening free from phone notifications. He shifts his focus, playing with his kids, volunteering, slowing down. Contentment comes to David not from more wealth, but from cherishing what he already has. As Thomas à Kempis hinted, real happiness isn't found in the world out there, it's in how the heart receives it. Modern life, meditation as a balm for today's wounds. Thomas à Kempis lived centuries before social media or round-the-clock work demands, but he understood the human tendency to chase after fleeting things and lose sight of the essentials. Today, those temptations are louder than ever. Who hasn't scrolled through Instagram, seen someone's perfect life, and felt a pang of inadequacy? Who hasn't been caught in the relentless grind of work, pushing themselves to exhaustion yet still feeling unfulfilled? Meditation, as Thomas describes it, offers an escape. For Anna, it's how she copes with job stress without losing herself. For David, it teaches him that success isn't fame, it's peace of mind. And for young people today, meditation might be the antidote to the distractions of TikTok or the personal crises of a fast-changing world, like when you're unsure who you are or what you want. Consider Lynn, a 22-year-old fresh out of college. She feels lost amid endless options: get a job, study more, or try her luck abroad. She opens social media, sees friends landing great gigs, and her anxiety spikes. She's still directionless. The pressure mounts, and Lynn spirals. One day, she decides to try meditation. She sits down, turns off her phone, and asks herself, what do I really want? What makes me happy? In the quiet, Lynn realizes she doesn't need to keep up with everyone else. She starts writing a childhood passion she'd forgotten and slowly finds her spark again. Meditation doesn't hand Lynn instant answers, but it carves out a space for her to hear her own voice and rediscover her path. A small invitation in a big world. Thomas A. Kempis doesn't promise that meditation will fix every problem. He simply offers it as a doorway to God, to peace, to a life with meaning. For Anna, it's how she balances work and soul. For David, it's a lesson in sufficiency. For Lynn, it's a light in the fog. And for you, what could it be? It doesn't require grand gestures. Just try 5 minutes a day, sit still, breathe, pray, or listen to your heart. You might feel restless at first, like David did. You might doubt it, as Anna once thought. But stick with it, and you'll find that amid a noisy, chaotic world, there's a quiet corner waiting just for you. Thomas A. Kempis wrote these words centuries ago, but they feel meant for us now. Pause. Meditate. Let God guide you. In that stillness, you'll uncover not just contentment, but yourself. From meditation to humility, a seamless path to peace. As Thomas A. Kempis dipped his quill into ink, the soft glow of candlelight illuminating his small monastery cell, he had just finished writing about meditation in the Imitation of Christ. He'd shown how pausing to reflect and connect with God could quiet the chaos of the soul, offering a stillness that Anna, David, and Lynn had each discovered in their own ways. But Thomas didn't stop there. He knew that meditation was only the beginning, a doorway into something deeper. As his pen scratched across the parchment, he turned to humility, the next step on this sacred journey. For him, meditation opened the heart, but humility anchored it, turning fleeting peace into a lasting strength. If meditation taught Anna to slow down, David to cherish what he had, and Lynn to hear her own voice, then humility would teach them and us to let go of the self, to stand small before God and others, and to find freedom in that surrender. 5 centuries later, in a world obsessed with being bigger, louder, better, Thomas's words beckon us to a quieter, truer path. The seed of humility, born in stillness. For Anna, the 28-year-old ad executive who found calm through meditation, the shift to humility began subtly. After weeks of starting her mornings in silence, whispering her exhaustion to God, she noticed something new. The constant need to outshine her co-workers, like when she'd interrupt meetings to flaunt her ideas, started to feel hollow. One day, as she sat by her window, breathing deeply, a thought flickered: why do I always have to be the best? What if I just wasn't? It was a seed planted in those meditative moments, a whisper from Thomas's wisdom: do not think yourself better than others, for all are frail. Anna didn't yet know it, but humility was taking root, nudging her from pride's grip toward a lighter way of being. Picture her at work a week later. A new project lands, and Jake, the younger colleague, gets picked to lead it. Old Anna would have seethed, her pride bruised. I'm more experienced, she'd have thought. But this time, she pauses, remembers her quiet mornings, and tries something different. She stays silent in the meeting, listens to Jake's pitch, and afterward, offers a small suggestion: not to steal the spotlight, but to help. Her chest doesn't tighten with envy, it softens. She feels no loss of status, only a strange relief. Humility, she's learning, isn't about shrinking, it's about releasing the need to tower over others, a lesson born from the stillness she'd cultivated. Humility's layers, a heart unburdened. Thomas à Kempis saw humility as more than a polite gesture, it was a tapestry of surrender woven through every part of life. He broke it down: humility before God, accepting that all we have is a gift, not a trophy; humility toward others, seeing them as equals, not threats; and humility within, embracing our flaws without shame. Meditation had prepared the ground, quieting Anna's mind, centering David's priorities, guiding Lynn's search, but humility built the house, steady and unpretentious. Take David, the 40-year-old businessman who'd found contentment in meditation. His 10-minute silences had shown him the treasures he'd overlooked: his family, his health. But pride still lingered, a subtle shadow. He'd pat himself on the back: I figured this out. I'm wiser now. One evening, as he sat reflecting, Thomas's words echoed in his mind: seek not your own glory, but God's. David paused. Hadn't his newfound peace come from beyond him? The next day, at a community event, he didn't boast about his volunteering or his success, he just served, quietly stacking chairs, smiling at strangers. Humility stripped away the need to be admired, leaving him fuller than pride ever had. Then there's Minh, the 19-year-old perfectionist whose meditation cracked his obsession with flawlessness. Writing his failures in a journal had eased his self-judgment, but social media still taunted him. He'd scroll, see peers thriving, and feel the old urge to post something impressive. One night, meditating on Thomas's call to humility, he who knows himself well seeks not praise, Minh made a choice. He shared a raw post: messed up a test. It's okay, I'm still learning. No Polish, just truth. Friends replied with their own stumbles, and Minh felt a bond he'd never known. Humility, born from his quiet moments, taught him that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's connection. A father's fall and rise, humility in the heat of life. Carlos, the 45-year-old construction worker, had also tasted meditation's peace. After yelling matches with his daughter Mia, he'd started sitting alone, breathing through his anger. It helped, but his pride, the belief he had to rule as the tough dad, still fueled their fights. Thomas's next lesson hit him square: better to be lowly and serve than to sit on high. One stormy afternoon, after Mia stormed out again, Carlos sat with those words, rain drumming the roof. He saw it: his need to be right had broken them apart. That night, he knocked on Mia's door, his voice unsteady. I've messed up, kiddo. I'm not perfect, and I need you to help me fix this. Mia froze, her unyielding dad, apologizing. Her eyes softened, and they talked, raw and real, for hours. Carlos didn't command, he listened. Humility didn't make him less of a father, it made him more, rebuilding trust where pride had burned bridges. Meditation had calmed his temper, humility healed his home. Humility today, a countercurrent to chaos. Thomas couldn't imagine 2025's pressures, but his insight into humility fits them like a glove. Meditation quiets the noise, social media's clamor, work's grind, personal crises, but humility dismantles the ego driving it all. Anna's workplace thrives on competition, she chooses cooperation, offering ideas without needing credit, her peace unshaken. Minh's generation chases likes, he opts for authenticity, finding worth beyond the screen. Carlos faces parenting's demand to know it all, he admits he doesn't, and his daughter draws closer. Think of today's struggles: the influencer flexing wealth while you scroll, feeling small, the boss expecting you to shine brighter than your peers, the breakup that leaves you too proud to say I'm hurting. Humility flips the script. Last week, Anna watched a teammate falter in a pitch. She didn't swoop in to save it, just encouraged them after, feeling freer for it. Minh skipped the gym selfie, laughed with friends instead, and felt alive. Carlos, at Mia's art show, didn't brag about her talent, he beamed quietly, letting her shine. In a world shouting be more, humility whispers be you, and it's enough. The quiet power, why humility endures. Thomas unravels humility's depth, before God, Anna's skills, David's contentment, Carlos's strength are borrowed, not owned, toward others, Jake, Min's peers, Mia are equals, not rivals, within, Min's flaws, Anna's losses, Carlos's failures are threads in a human tapestry, not stains. Meditation sows the seeds, humility reaps the harvest. It cures burnout by saying you don't have to do it all, it heals comparison by saying your life is yours, it ends isolation by saying we're all broken, together. A step beyond meditation. Thomas doesn't demand instant humility, just a beginning. Anna lets go of the spotlight, one meeting at a time. David serves without fanfare, one day at a time. Minh shares his truth, one post at a time. Carlos listens, one conversation at a time. And you? Maybe today, before the next scroll, task, or clash, you pause, meditate, then ask, where's my pride? Can I release it? From stillness to surrender, Thomas guides us. Humility isn't the end of strength, it's the start of freedom. From humility to a greater light, the bridge to goodness and peace. Thomas à Kempis sat in his quiet cell, the flicker of his candle casting shadows on the stone walls, his quill gliding from humility to a new horizon in the imitation of Christ. He'd shown how meditation stilled the soul, as Anna, David, Minh, and Carlos discovered, and how humility anchored it, freeing them from pride's heavy chains. But Thomas knew the journey didn't end there, it deepened, blossoming into something radiant. As he wrote goodness and peace in man, his words glowed with hope. Beyond the stillness of meditation and the surrender of humility lay a promise, a wellspring of goodness and peace within every heart, waiting to be uncovered. For Anna, it was more than letting go of rivalry; for David, more than serving quietly; for Minh and Carlos, more than embracing their flaws. It was about finding the light within, a light that could shine outward, even in a world shadowed by chaos. 5 centuries later, as we scroll through feeds of conflict or rush through days of stress, Thomas's next lesson beckons like a melody, pulling us forward. What if, beneath it all, goodness and peace were already ours to claim? Goodness and peace in man, the hidden spark. Thomas opens this section with a gentle truth: every soul, made in God's image, carries an innate goodness, a capacity for peace that no storm can erase. Meditation quiets the noise, humility clears the ego's clutter, but goodness and peace are the treasures they reveal, a state of being where kindness flows naturally, and tranquility reigns despite the world's tumult. For Thomas, this isn't a distant dream but a daily possibility, rooted in aligning with Christ's love. Take Anna, the ad executive who'd softened through meditation and humility. She'd learned to listen at work, to lift Jake up instead of outshining him. But one day, a client meeting goes sideways, the team's campaign flops, and blame flies like shrapnel. Anna's old self would have dodged or deflected, but now, something stirs. She recalls Thomas's words: peace comes from within, and goodness seeks no reward. Instead of joining the fray, she steps in, calm and steady. We'll fix this together, she says, offering ideas not for glory, but to mend the mess. Her team pauses, surprised by her grace. Later, Jake thanks her, and Anna feels a warmth she can't explain, not pride, but a quiet joy. Goodness, she realizes, isn't just avoiding harm, it's planting hope. Peace isn't just her stillness, it's the calm she spreads. The ripple of goodness, a teen's turnaround. Minh, the 19-year-old college student, had found relief in meditation and humility, sharing his failures online and connecting with others. But Thomas's next lesson pushes him further. Goodness and peace in man suggests that true peace isn't solitary, it flows outward, touching lives. One afternoon, Minh overhears a classmate, Tuan, venting about a group project gone wrong. Tuan's frustrated, feeling abandoned by their teammates. Minh could walk away after all, it's not his problem. But a line from Thomas echoes, bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Minh sits down with Tuan. I've been there, he says, sharing his own midterm flop. Then he offers to help rework the project not for credit, just to ease Tuan's load. They spend hours together, laughing over bad coffee and messy notes. By the end, Tuan's stress melts into gratitude, and Minh feels a peace deeper than his solo meditations. Goodness isn't loud, it's this moment, small but real. Peace isn't just Minh's, it's Tuan's now, too, a ripple born from a humble heart. Peace amid the storm, a father's quiet victory. Carlos, the 45-year-old dad, had rebuilt his bond with Mia through humility, trading pride for vulnerability. But life doesn't stay calm. One night, a call comes: his crew's latest job site has collapsed, delays piling up, his boss furious. Carlos's temper flares, he wants to lash out, to fight the chaos. Yet, as he paces, Thomas's wisdom rings: peace is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of God within it. Meditation had taught him to breathe, humility, to listen. Now, goodness and peace call him to rise above. The next day, Carlos meets his crew not with shouts, but with a steady voice. We're in this together, he says, rolling up his sleeves to help. At home, he doesn't dump his stress on Mia, he asks about her day, shares a tired smile. She senses his calm, and their evening feels warm, not strained. Carlos finds that goodness isn't just fixing things, it's holding steady for others. Peace isn't the job site's silence, it's the strength he carries through it, a gift from within. David's full circle, from contentment to compassion. David, the businessman, had shifted through meditation and humility, cherishing his family, serving quietly. But goodness and peace in man lights a new spark. Thomas writes, the good man seeks the good of all. One weekend, David passes a homeless man, Sam, near his office. He's seen him before, always hurrying by. This time, he stops. Meditation had centered him, humility had humbled him. Now, he buys Sam a sandwich, sits, and listens. Sam's story spills out, rough and raw. David doesn't fix it all, but he returns weekly, bringing food, a kind word. Sam's eyes brighten, and David feels a peace beyond his quiet moments, a peace tied to goodness, shared not hoarded. Modern echoes, goodness and peace in 2025. Thomas's world lacked our screens and schedules, but his vision of goodness and peace fits today's chaos like a bomb. Social media floods us with outrage, arguments, flexes, despair. Anna counters it with quiet grace, calming her team's panic. Work demands perfection or collapse. Carlos meets it with steady kindness, lifting his crew. Personal crises like Minh's lost direction or David's past emptiness beg for meaning. Goodness and peace answer, not with noise, but with presence. Think of last week, Anna's friend vents online about a bad day. Anna messages her, listens, no judgment. Minh sees a stranger drop their groceries, he stops, helps, chats. Carlos, stuck in traffic, lets a rushed driver cut in, smiling instead of cursing. Small acts, but they ripple. In a culture of me first, Thomas's call to goodness, selfless, simple, cuts through. In a storm of stress, his peace inner, unshaken, holds firm. The depth of it all, a light that shines. Thomas unpacks this beautifully. Goodness isn't grand gestures, it's Anna's calm, Minh's help, Carlos's patience, David's sandwich. It's Christ's love, alive in us. Peace isn't external calm, it's Anna's steadiness, Minh's joy, Carlos's resilience, David's compassion. Meditation unearths it, humility refines it, goodness and peace share it. Together, they heal burnout with purpose, comparison with kindness, isolation with connection. The invitation, step into the light. Thomas doesn't demand we master this overnight. Anna starts with one kind word, Minh with one helping hand, Carlos with one deep breath, David with one conversation. And you? Today, amid the rush or the scroll, pause, meditate, humble yourself, then look, where can goodness flow? Where can peace rest? From stillness to surrender to shining, Thomas whispers, you were made for this. In a world of noise, goodness and peace are your quiet rebellion, a spark within, ready to light the dark. From inner peace to a focused soul, the path to purity and purpose. Thomas à Kempis leaned over his weathered desk, the dim candlelight casting a steady glow as he moved his quill from goodness and peace in man to a new chapter in the Imitation of Christ. He'd shown how meditation brought stillness to Anna's chaos, how humility freed David from pride, how goodness rippled through Minh's kindness, and how peace steadied Carlos's storms. But Thomas saw further, a higher call beyond the calm and the kindness. As he began purity of mind and unity of purpose, his words took on a crystalline clarity. Goodness and peace were gifts, but they flourished best in a mind cleansed of distraction and a heart aligned with a single, sacred aim. For Anna, it meant more than calming her team; for Minh, more than helping a friend; for Carlos and David, more than quiet strength or shared compassion. It was about sharpening their focus, stripping away the clutter, and chasing one true purpose, God's will. Today, in a world buzzing with notifications, ambitions, and endless noise, Thomas's next step shines like a compass, urging us to cut through the haze and run toward what matters most. What if purity and purpose could light our way through the mess of 2025? Purity of mind, clearing the fog. Thomas opens with a vision of purity, not a cold perfection, but a mind washed clean of vain thoughts, selfish desires, and restless wandering. It's the fruit of meditation, stillness, and humility's surrender, refined further by goodness and peace. A pure mind, he says, sees clearly, rests fully, and loves simply, unclouded by the world's distractions. For Anna, the ad executive, this shift comes unexpectedly. She'd found peace in her morning silences and humility in lifting others up, but her days still felt scattered, emails piling up, meetings overlapping, her brain juggling a dozen priorities. One night, exhausted, she stumbles on Thomas's call, keep your mind pure, free from what pulls you astray. She realizes how much she's been chasing: client approval, career wins, even fleeting praise. The next morning, during her quiet time, she tries something new. She prays, help me focus on what's true, letting go of the mental noise. At work, she stops multitasking, shuts her inbox, listens fully in a meeting, tackles one task with care. Her head feels lighter, her decisions sharper. Purity of mind isn't about doing less, it's about seeing more, cutting through the fog to what's real. Unity of purpose, one goal above all. Hand in hand with purity, Thomas champions unity of purpose, a life aimed at a single star, pleasing God. It's not about rigid rules, but a heart unified, no longer torn between competing wants. Meditation centers it, humility aligns it, goodness fuels it, peace guards it, and purpose drives it forward. David, the businessman, feels this pull after months of growth. Meditation taught him contentment, humility curbed his ego, and goodness led him to Sam, the homeless man he now visits weekly. But at 40, David still wrestles with the restless itch: work goals, family duties, personal dreams tugging him in circles. One Sunday, Thomas's words hit home: seek one purpose, and all else falls into place. Sitting with Sam, sharing a coffee, David reflects. What if his life wasn't about climbing ladders or stacking achievements, but about love, God's love, lived out? The next day, he turns down a promotion that'd steal time from his kids and Sam. He feels no loss, only clarity. Unity of purpose isn't sacrifice, it's liberation, a compass locking onto true north. A student's clarity, Minh's new lens. Minh, the 19-year-old student, had moved from perfectionism to vulnerability, from meditation to goodness, helping Tuan with his project. But his college life remains a blur: classes, part-time gigs, social pressures pulling him every which way. Thomas's purity of mind and unity of purpose strikes a chord: let not your heart be divided. One night, scrolling through TikTok funny clips, then ads, then debates, Minh feels drained, his focus shredded. He sets his phone down, breathes, and asks, what am I here for? In the stillness, he sees it, not grades or likes, but growth, learning, creating, lifting others. The next day, he skips the endless scroll, writes a story instead, shares it with Tuan. His mind clears, his purpose sharpens, a quiet victory over the chaos. A father's focus, Carlos finds the core. Carlos, the construction worker, had steadied his home with peace and goodness, rebuilding trust with Mia. But his days still teeter: job stress, bills, parenting woes splintering his energy. Thomas's wisdom cuts through: a pure mind and single purpose bring rest. One evening, after a grueling shift, Carlos sits, hands rough from work, and reflects. He's been chasing stability, money, control, respect, but it's a treadmill. In his quiet, he prays, show me what lasts. The answer dawns: his daughter, his faith. The next morning, he skips overtime, takes Mia fishing instead. They laugh, talk, bond, no distractions, just them. Purity strips the clutter, purpose points him home. Modern ties, purity and purpose in today's noise. Thomas couldn't foresee our 2025 whirlwind: phones pinging, deadlines looming, identities tangled in trends and titles. Yet purity of mind and unity of purpose fits like a lifeline. Anna's inbox mirrors our overload: she tames it, focuses, thrives. David's ambition reflects our hustle: he realigns it, rests. Minh's scroll echoes our distraction: he breaks free, creates. Carlos's juggling act is our daily grind: he simplifies, connects. Think of it, yesterday, Anna ignored a gossip thread, finished a pitch with calm precision. Minh muted his phone, helped a classmate study, felt alive. Carlos skipped a news binge, built a shelf with Mia, smiled more. In a world of do everything, be everything, purity says choose less, see more, purpose says aim true, live deep. It's countercultural: less noise, one goal, and it works. The heart of it, a soul aligned. Thomas weaves it tight: purity of mind clears the lens, Anna's focus, Minh's clarity, Carlos's rest, David's simplicity. Unity of purpose sets the course: David's love, Carlos's family, Minh's growth, Anna's truth. Meditation starts it, humility shapes it, goodness spreads it, peace holds it, purity and purpose crown it. They cure distraction with presence, ambition with meaning, fragmentation with wholeness. The call: simplify and soar. Thomas doesn't expect instant mastery, just a step. Anna shuts one tab, David says one no, Minh skips one scroll, Carlos picks one moment. And you? Today, amid the buzzwork, screens, worries, pause. Meditate, humble yourself, share goodness, find peace, then ask, what clouds my mind? What splits my heart? Purity and purpose wait, not as burdens, but as wings. In a cluttered world, Thomas murmurs, clear the noise, chase the light. Anna feels it in her steady breath, David in his freed time, Minh in his bold words, Carlos in his daughter's laugh. It's yours, to a focused soul, soaring free. Ourselves, continued, the deeper dive into the soul's mirror. Thomas A. Kempis pressed his quill to the parchment, the quiet of his cell wrapping around him as he lingered on ourselves in the imitation of Christ. He'd already traced the path from meditation's stillness to humility's surrender, through goodness's light, peace's anchor, and purpose's clarity, landing at this raw, unflinching call to self-knowledge. For Anna, David, Minh, and Carlos, Facing themselves had begun to peel back layers: Anna's hidden pride, David's buried selfishness, Min's sharp edges, Carlos's old wounds. But Thomas knew this was no quick glance. Ourselves wasn't a single moment of revelation, it was a lifelong unfolding, a mirror that kept reflecting, challenging, and refining. As he wrote, he urged not just a look, but a reckoning, a willingness to wrestle with the shadows and embrace the light within, trusting God to hold it all. In our 2025 blur of personas and pressures, where we dodge the truth with busyness or bury it under filters, Thomas's voice grows louder. To know ourselves fully is to live fully, messy, real, and free. What lies deeper still in the hearts of Anna, David, Min, and Carlos, and in us? Anna's unraveling, the cost of control. Anna, the ad executive, had cracked the door to herself, admitting her arrogance after that client's critique, owning it with her team. But ourselves doesn't let her stop there. Thomas insists, know your depths, and fear not the truth. One weekend, alone with a cup of coffee, Anna's mind drifts to a memory. She's dodged her last big fight with her sister, Lisa, 2 years ago. She'd stormed out, convinced she was right, too proud to call back. Now, in the silence, she sees it, her need to control, to always win, didn't just shape her work, it broke her bonds. Her chest tightens not with shame, but with ache. She picks up her phone, hesitates, then dials Lisa. I've been stubborn, Anna says, voice shaky. I miss you. Lisa's quiet a moment, then softens. They talk, laugh, cry. Facing herself, Anna finds not just a flaw, but a wound, and healing it doesn't weaken her, it opens her. Thomas's mirror shows her control's cost, but also its cure, vulnerability, not victory. At work Monday, she delegates a task she'd have hoarded. Her team shines, and she smiles, lighter than ever. David's shadows, the weight of regret. David, the businessman, had faced his past neglect of a co-worker, reaching out to mend it. But ourselves digs deeper. Thomas writes, search your heart, for there lies both sin and redemption. One night, as he sits with Sam over a shared meal, a heavier memory rises: his father, distant and demanding, who died before David could reconcile. He'd buried it, told himself he'd moved on. But now, in the quiet, he feels it, the anger he held, the forgiveness he withheld, the guilt that lingers. It's a knot he's ignored, thinking strength meant forgetting. David drives to the old park where his dad once took him, sits on a bench, and lets it spill: tears, prayers, a whispered I'm sorry. No answer comes, but a peace settles. The next day, he tells Sam the story, not for pity, but for truth. Sam nods, shares his own losses. Facing himself, David sees regret not as a chain, but a teacher pushing him to love harder now, with his kids, with Sam. Thomas's mirror doesn't just expose, it redeems. Min's layers, the fear beneath the fire. Min, the student, had owned his impatience with Tuan, mending it with an apology. But ourselves presses further. Thomas urges, look beyond the surface, to the root. One evening, studying late, Min feels a familiar churn: stress about grades, future, everything. He snaps at his roommate over a dirty dish, then stops, journal in hand. Why so quick to flare? Digging, he finds it, fear of failing, of not measuring up, a shadow from years of chasing A's to prove his worth. He'd masked it with hustle, but it festers still. Min writes it out: pages of doubt, then a plea, I'm scared, help me trust. The next day, he skips a perfectionist rewrite, submits his work as is good, not flawless. His professor nods, solid effort. Min breathes. Facing himself, he sees fear not as failure, but as a signal to let go. Thomas's mirror turns his fire into fuel, not for pride, but for faith. Carlos's core, the man behind the mask. Carlos, the father, had bared his past to Mia, strengthening their bond. but ourselves demands more. Thomas says, "Know yourself holy, and hide not from God." One night, after Mia's asleep, Carlo sits with a beer, staring at old photos him at 20, tough, grinning, before life hardened him. He'd told Mia the rough parts, but not the shame. He'd run from his own dad's anger, never looked back, built a wall instead. Now, it hits his temper with Mia echoed that past he'd fled. He walks outside, looks at the stars, and prays, "I'm like him, and I hate it." The truth stings, but it shifts him. The next day, he calls his estranged brother, asks about their dad's last years, listens, mourns. With Mia, he's gentler, catching his tone before it bites. Facing himself, Carlos finds not just scars, but roots, and cutting them frees him to be the dad he wants. Thomas's mirror doesn't flinch at men's modern echoes, ourselves in the 2025 maze. Thomas's 15th century cell didn't know our screens, but ourselves speaks to 2025's soul. Social media buries us Anna's curated life, men's witty mask hiding the real. Work consumes us David's titles, Carlos's grit skipping the why. Crises fracture us men's fear, Anna's rift pushing us to pose, not probe. But Thomas turns it, Anna faces her control, not her feed, David his regrets, not his wins, Carlos his roots, not his role, men his fear, not his flair. Yesterday, Anna skipped a brag post, called a friend instead, real talk, real tears. Men owned a late shift's grumpiness, laughed it off with co-workers' real connection. Carlos skipped a tough guy rant, hugged me a real love. David passed a promotion pitch, played with his kids' real joy. In a world of look at me, ourselves says, look at you flawed, fierce, enough. The unfolding truth, a soul in full. Thomas weaves it tight, meditation bears us, humility grounds us, goodness lifts us, peace holds us, purpose aims us, ourselves completes us. Anna's control, David's guilt, men's fear, Carlos's shame, they're not the story's end, but its heart. Self-knowledge heals pretense with honesty, distance with closeness, stagnation with grace. It's not a verdict, it's a beginning, a mirror reflecting God's hand. The call, face the full you. Thomas asks not for perfect selves, but true ones. Anna heals one rift, David frees one regret, Men owns one fear, Carlos cuts one root. And you? Today, in the rush scrolls, tasks, masks stop. Meditate, humble yourself, spread goodness, find peace, aim true, then dive, what's beneath your surface? Pain. Promise. Thomas whispers, face it, and rise. Anna feels it in her sister's voice, David in his kids' laughter, Men in his steady pen, Carlos in Mia's trust. It's yours, to a self known, loved, and whole. From self-knowledge to joy, the dawn of a good conscience. Thomas A. Kempis sat in his humble cell, the flicker of his candle steady as he moved his quill from ourselves to a brighter chapter in the Imitation of Christ. He'd walked Anna, David, Minh, and Carlos through meditation's stillness, humility's surrender, goodness's light, peace's strength, purpose's clarity, and the raw mirror of self-awareness, each step peeling back layers, revealing their flaws and their potential. But Thomas saw a radiant horizon beyond the struggle. As he began the joy of a good conscience, his words lifted like a song, to know oneself was vital, but to live with a heart clear before God was joy itself, a lightness born from integrity, a peace deeper than circumstance. For Anna, it was more than facing her control, for David, more than owning his regrets, for Minh and Carlos, more than wrestling their shadows. It was the freedom of a conscience unburdened, a soul aligned with truth. In our 2025 tangle of guilt, hustle, and hidden compromises, Thomas's next promise glows like dawn. What if a good conscience could be our truest delight? The joy of a good conscience, a heart set free. Thomas opens this section with a simple, soaring truth: A good conscience living in honesty, kindness, and faith brings a joy no wealth or praise can match. It's the fruit of all that came before: meditation's clarity, humility's grounding, goodness's outflow, peace's calm, purpose's focus, and self-knowledge's honesty. A good conscience, he says, sleeps soundly, fears little, and rejoices quietly, rooted in God's approval, not man's applause. For Anna, the ad executive, this joy dawned slowly. She'd faced her need to control, mended things with Lisa, and softened at work. But one day, a tempting shortcut crosses her desk: a chance to tweak a campaign's data, boost results, win a bonus. Old Anna would have justified it: everyone does it. But Thomas's voice rings: a good conscience is a continual feast. She pauses, feels the pull, then reports the truth, flawed numbers and all. Her boss nods, no fanfare. That night, alone, Anna feels no regret, only a buoyant calm, like a weight's lifted. Joy isn't the bonus she missed, it's the mirror she can face, clear and clean. David's redemption, a quiet triumph. David, the businessman, had dug into his regrets: his father, that co-worker, finding peace in amends. The joy of a good conscience lifts him higher. Thomas writes, he who lives well fears not the day of judgment. One afternoon, as he helps Sam sort donated clothes, a co-worker from his past calls Mark, now struggling, asks for a loan. David could say no, keep his comfort, he'd earned it. But his conscience, honed by self-knowledge, stirs. He sends the money, not much, but enough, then calls Mark, listens to his story. No lecture, just care. That evening, David sits with his kids, a smile tugging his lips. Joy isn't the cash he kept, it's the ease in his heart, knowing he chose right. Min's light, integrity over image. Min, the student, had faced his fear and impatience, growing through honesty. But the joy of a good conscience tests him anew. Thomas urges, better a clear soul than a fleeting crown. One day, a group project tempts him: his teammates slack, leaving Min to carry it. He could fudge their names off, take the credit, his grades at stake. The old Min, chasing A's, might have done it. But he recalls Thomas: joy lies in truth. He submits it as is, names included, and tells his professor the uneven effort. She adjusts the marks fairly. Later, Tuan texts, thanks for not throwing us under. Min grins, not at the grade, but at the lightness inside. A good conscience isn't applause, it's the glow of doing right. Carlos's peace, a father's true strength. Carlos, the construction worker, had bared his past to Mia and his brother, cutting old roots. The joy of a good conscience crowns it. Thomas says, a man with a good conscience stands firm. One night, a co-worker offers a shady deal: extra hours off the books, cash under the table. Carlos needs it, bills loom. But his conscience, forged through facing himself, balks. He declines, works the hard shift instead. At home, Mia asks, tough day? He nods, yeah, but I'm good. She hugs him, and Carlos feels it: a steady joy, not from money, but from a heart he trusts. Strength isn't the cash, it's the man he sees in his daughter's eyes. Modern ties, joy in a guilt-ridden age. Thomas's medieval cell didn't know our 2025 grind, but the joy of a good conscience fits it like a bomb. Social media tempts us: Anna could have posted a fake win, Min a polished lie hiding the real cost. Work pushes corners: David's loan, Carlos's deal promising ease for a price. Crises like Min's grades or Anna's pressure nudge us to bend. But Thomas flips it: Anna chooses truth over gain, David care over comfort, Min fairness over fame, Carlos honor over hustle. Last week, Anna skipped a white lie to a client, owned the delay, trust grew. Min helped a stranger with no post about it, quiet pride bloomed. Carlos turned down a shortcut, fixed a neighbor's fence instead, his sleep was deep. David gave without boasting, played catch with his son, his laugh was free. In a world of get ahead, a good conscience says, stand tall, joy follows. The heart of it, a feast within. Thomas ties it tight, meditation clears the way, humility builds the base, goodness plants the seed, peace waters it, purpose points it, self-knowledge shapes it, the joy of a good conscience reaps it. Anna's honesty, David's generosity, Min's integrity, Carlos's resolve, they're not burdens, they're banquets. It heals guilt with freedom, fear with firmness, emptiness with fullness. It's not a prize, it's a state, a soul at rest. The call, live the joy. Thomas doesn't demand spotless lives, just faithful ones. Anna chooses one truth, David one gift, Min one fair step, Carlos one upright no. And you? Today, amid the rush, scrolls, deals, doubts, pause. Meditate, humble yourself, spread goodness, find peace, aim true, know yourself, then act. What clears your heart? Thomas sings, live well, and rejoice. Anna feels it in her steady breath, David in his son's grin, Min in his clear gaze, Carlos in Mia's trust. It's yours, to a conscience good, a joy unbound.